So today we celebrate the feast day of the presentation of the Lord, which is a feast that only falls, it's February 2nd every year, but it's a feast that only falls on Sunday about once every 5 to 10 years. So if the whole candle thing was like a little weird and you're just like, Father, you're getting more weird ideas every single time I come here. It's not weird, it's just you don't come to Mass on a Tuesday morning when it falls on a Tuesday morning, so you just never seen it before. Maybe you just haven't seen it in a while. We're all used to the procession on Palm Sunday. Great, this is another one. It's just one of those things that we do. I've only ever seen it 5 times in my entire life. The presentation of the Lord has only fallen on Sunday 5 times in my entire life. And I'm pretty old, so it's not very often. That it's only 8 times since 1970, so most of us have never even seen it. It's okay. But today then, this is why today is also called, you might have heard this term before, it's also called Candle Mass. You might have heard that term, but that's because today we have candles at Mass. It's Candle Mass. Today's also the day we traditionally bless candles. So if you brought your candles to be blessed, I can sure do that. My mother, I hope she doesn't watch this. My mother's a crazy lady. You all know that. She had 10 kids. But my mother, she would always bring all of her candles for the entire year on February 2nd. So on a Tuesday morning at the 7 a.m. Mass, she'd show up with all her candles for the priest to bless. She'd have her Advent candles ready to go, which I don't know if you know when Advent is. It's still 10 months away, but my mom was ready to go. She had her candles blessed for the entire year. But again, that's the tradition of the church. We bless our candles on this day. Today is also then the traditional end of the Christmas season. Don't raise your hand, but if you still have your Christmas tree up, you're not lazy. You're not trying to hold out for more Christmas. You're actually just a normal human being that Christmas lasts for 40 days. And so you kept your tree up. But tomorrow you're a weirdo. You need to take your Christmas tree down. So it officially ends today. Today's the last day. You finally got there. Okay. Anyway, okay. One of my earliest memories as a child, though. So one of my earliest memories as a child, probably the earliest one I've ever had, it's connected to this gospel reading that we have today. So when we were young, our dad would always pray with us before we went to bed. And there was a bunch of us, so we were in our rooms, and he'd just sit out in the hallway, and we could all hear him just fine. But he'd always pray what's called night prayer. Okay, so it's from the Liturgy of the Hour. So priests and religious, I make this promise to pray these prayers every single day, 5 times a day. But with us, my dad would just pray what's called night prayer, the last part of these prayers. And every day during night prayer is contained this, what's called the Canticle of Simeon, this beautiful prayer that Simeon prays. And ever since I was 2 or 3, whatever age I was, these words have been burned into my brain. Lord, now you let your servant go in peace. Your word has been fulfilled. My own eyes have seen the salvation which you have prepared in the sight of every people, a light to reveal you to the nations and the glory of your people Israel. That's literally my earliest memory as a kid are those words. I knew them before I knew them. They're just burned into my brain, my earliest memory. And those words then are at the heart of this celebration today. Again, today is when the fullness of the mystery of the nativity of what we started celebrating at Christmas, it's all finally wrapped up and packaged up in this beautiful little package. God becoming man. God taking on our humanity. The letter to the Hebrews said it so beautifully. He took on our flesh and blood, right? He became like us in every way. He suffered. Jesus comes, God becoming man, and just lives everything. So important. But then notice what Simeon says. Because, again, I've been at church before too. Don't know if you knew that. I know these are just beautiful words we hear in the gospel, but do we actually sometimes let them hit us in the face and be like, what are you talking about? Because Simeon says, what does he say? I've seen the salvation. I've seen this light that's come. And 2 things should strike you immediately. 1, at this point, I don't know if you noticed, Jesus is still a baby. So Jesus, technically speaking, hasn't saved anybody yet. So what in the world does it mean? I've seen the salvation. It's he didn't do anything yet. Also, I know in our paintings, we make Jesus in the nativity scene this glowing child. Jesus wasn't actually glowing. So when he walked into the temple with his parents, it's not like here was this glowing baby coming towards him and he's the light. It's no, here's this normal looking family, this normal looking kid, and yet he says here, I've seen salvation. What? And here I see the light. What are you talking about? To answer that though, what was Simeon mean? I do have to, and I know some of you have heard this before, I'm so sorry, but some of you haven't, so let them enjoy it. The most powerful image that I know to communicate what's going on here is the story of the rescue of those boys from that cave in Thailand. So if you want to sleep now, you're fine. Go to sleep if you've already heard this before, but I have to say it again. Back in 2018, there's that very famous story. We all heard about it. There was those like 12-year-old boys, 12-year-old soccer team in Thailand, their coach. After soccer practice one day, they go and explore the caves. And it became such a famous event that National Geographic finally made a documentary about it. It's called The Rescue. This is where you can go to sleep. Just note that down, The Rescue. I'm going to go watch it, and then, okay, you can go to sleep now. But for everybody else, okay, the rescue of these boys from that cave. After practice, they go to these caves. And before you start blaming these boys like, well, Father, they put themselves in harm's way. They put themselves in stupid danger. It's like, no, like it's a national park. Everybody goes to these caves in Thailand. That's just what people do. They go to the caves, have fun. What wasn't normal, though, is that year in Thailand, the monsoon season showed up, not like a couple days early, it showed up a couple months early. That's why the caves were still open. And like the caves do every single year, the monsoons came, and very quickly, all of these caves flooded. The boys at this point were about 2.5 miles back into the cave system, and seeing all this water coming up, they do what you would do. They climbed to the highest spot that they could find. And luckily, that spot was right above the water line. Right, so they're on this like little shelf in the caves with the water right beneath them. And to their credit, they know right away, there is nothing that we can do. Like we can't just swim a little bit, hold our breath for 30 seconds, and maybe we'll figure it out. It's like, no, we're 2.5 miles back. There's nothing that we can do to get out of here. They're very aware that they are stuck, very aware that they're trapped. It doesn't take too long then for people to figure out that these boys are back there. One, they're missing, but then two, people figure out they went back into those caves. So they don't even know if they're alive, but they begin this incredible rescue mission to go find them. And they do what you would naturally do if you were in Thailand at the time. Who are you going to call? The Thai Navy SEALs, of course. Call the Navy SEALs in. So the Thai Navy SEALs give it their best go. But again, I don't know if you know this, cave diving is not like an easy thing to figure out overnight. So like the scuba gear that you think you know how to use, it's just not the same when you do cave diving. And so the Navy SEALs from Thailand give it their best go. In the process of it, one of them dies, and they finally realize, like, we don't have the skills to get this done. And so they do what you would then do if you can't figure it out and you need to call somebody. You call an IT specialist in Great Britain and a retired firefighter from Great Britain, old Blighty, just across the pond. Right, these guys, they're revered as the top cave divers in the entire world. But I don't know if you know this, like cave diving doesn't pay the bills. Like there's no career in cave diving. There is zero money there, so you have to have a real job. But these guys, it's just their hobby, and yet hobby though it may be, they're revered as the premier cave divers in the entire world. And so all of a sudden, they become the two most important people in the entire world. They get flown first class out to Thailand, that's nice. And within minutes of landing, they're in the cars headed towards the caves. And within hours of landing, they're already making their first dives back into the caves to start trying to map it out and figure out a way back there. Within just 2 days, they actually then do it. Right? They find their way through 2.5 miles underwater. 2.5 miles, they figure their way out, figure their way back to these boys in the caves, and they find them. And you can go watch the video. It's very powerful, just that video, where their head pops above the water for the first time, and their lights just hit these boys, and the boys are just like going berserk. The whole rescue operation of it then, like how they then get the boys out, that's a whole nother part of the story. And I'd love to tell it to you, but we don't have all day. But spoiler alert, they eventually then do get them out. Okay, the reason I love this story, here's the point, right? The reason that I love this documentary, that I love this story, is because it is the most real, the most powerful, the most visceral image of Jesus' incarnation and what he does for us. The most powerful one that I've ever come across. And what I mean is this, those boys are us. Those boys are humanity, okay? Trapped, stuck in a condition that they cannot figure out for themselves. All they can do is wait and hope, like hope against hope, that someone is going to come and do something, that someone will come and do something. In the pitch dark, you can just think about that. They're just in the pitch dark. For 10 days, they're back there. In the pitch dark, they're just waiting. Okay, that's us. That's humanity. Our human condition, the condition of original sin, just the condition of it all. Like I talk about a lot, we can be good people. You don't, technically speaking, need God to be a good person. But we are helpless to actually fix the condition that we're in at the end of the day. Okay, we can medicate it. Right? We can make our little cave that we're trapped in nicer. We can dig a little hole out, smooth off the rock so that it's more comfy. But at the end of the day, we can't get ourselves out of it. Someone has to come to get us out of it. Okay, and then that's why the divers then are this beautiful image of Jesus Christ, God becoming man. Again, the only way that these boys are getting out is if someone comes through the caves to get them. They tried that whole Chilean miner thing, and they just drill through the mountain to find them. They couldn't do that though, because it's like, well, where do you drill? You'd have to be so precise to hit the exact spot that they're at. So they knew that wouldn't work. Someone had to enter in. Someone has to enter into this condition. And it's a condition that costs. Again, one person died trying this. They have to enter into that same condition. And so that's what Jesus does. That's why it's such a beautiful image of Jesus. Jesus enters into our condition. He enters into humanity, flesh and blood. He enters into the darkness of it all. And from there, he's able to save us. From that spot, he's able to do something for us. Okay, so then, just to make it kind of real, because again, I know it's very easy to just go to church, hear the Jesus things, and then we all move on. But just put yourself in the position of the boys for a second. Again, but if you're going to have a panic attack, please don't do that. Please don't do that. But imagine you're in this tiny little cave, pitch dark, 10 days, no food. You lose track of time because it's 10 days, and you're just in the dark. When all of a sudden, after you've lost track of time, underneath the water there, you just see this little light show up. And it just starts getting closer and closer, brighter and brighter. And then all of a sudden, some random dude's head just pops out of the water, light on top of his head. What's your reaction going to be? Again, go watch the video on YouTube of what happened to these boys. But the reaction is, all of a sudden, your shoulders go like this. Ugh. All of a sudden, you just say, we're saved. Boom. Okay. So go back to this Simeon, the Simeon guy from the gospel. Okay. What does Simeon mean? Well, it's pretty obvious. Lord, now you let your servant go in peace. It's your word has been fulfilled. My own eyes have seen the salvation. Yeah, sure, you didn't save anybody yet, but it's here. I don't need to worry. The salvation is here. And it's this light for revelation. It's this beautiful image of light that has come into the darkness. Simeon is a person who is very in touch with the human condition. We, modern Americans, we deny it. We tell ourselves, what? I'm fine. You're fine. We're all fine. It's fine. Just it's fine. But it's not fine. The human condition is something we can't figure out on our own. We can't resolve the situation on our own. We can just make our cave a little nicer. No, Simeon recognizes, I need someone to come. I need someone to show up and do something. I need a light to come into the darkness. I need someone that can rescue me, save me, give me this salvation that I cannot give myself. And that's what he sees when he sees the Lord Jesus arrive. So, like I've been saying for a couple of weeks now, next week we officially start this series for this spring called Renewing. And Jesus, again, what does Jesus come? He brings salvation. Salvation we talked about last week is this healing. But during renewing, one simple aspect of it, the hardest aspect of it's going to be simply to recognize, to discover those ways that we ourselves are in those caves, those ways that we're in darkness. Like I say all the time, and I just said it again, we tell ourselves, I'm fine. I'm going to try to be a better person. Maybe I'll go to church on Sunday when I need it, but I'm fine. But first and foremost, then, if Jesus is ever going to make any sense, if salvation is ever going to be something we hope for, we have to recognize the caves that we find ourselves in. Right, and that's why this, I think, renewing is going to be such a beautiful journey for us. And so, like I keep saying, my simple encouragement is just going to be to engage it. Sure, the homilies on Sundays, but then, very importantly, to find time for a holy hour each week. Right? Sunday afternoon through Tuesday morning, the Eucharist will be here on the altar exposed. And so that's a beautiful time to do that. Sign-ups are under the TV. But then also take time during the week to do these deeper dives. Again, there's books for this. There's many, many different ways to engage that. But why? Why would we do that? It's because we need to become more aware of those places where we are trapped, so to speak. Those places where we're in darkness. Have you ever confessed the same sin for like 30 years in a row? Just me? Oh, okay, sure, just me. Like, no, those things that we struggle with, those are places of darkness. Those are places where we're trapped. Those are places we can't get out on our own. And typically what we do is we say, I'll just live with it. I'll figure it out. I'll make my cave a little nicer and just deal with it. Okay. But once we recognize that we're there, that's when we can also recognize and begin to hope against hope, but hope with real hope that the light will come, that the Lord will show up. And when he does, he'll be able to give us that salvation that we actually need. He'll be able to rescue us, to give us the healing that we need in order to be renewed.